in the Judaic narrative, the idea of being distinctive and closed to the outsider is a rabbinical statute. Of course, a number of Jews have written very scathing critiques of how Jewish culture is closed to the outsider and you cannot save a non-Jewish life and all that stuff, right? But what's fascinating is the Quran doesn't say that. And the narrative of the Prophet, peace be upon him, actually, let's take the Quran first. In the Quran, if you take only the Quran, even before the elaboration of the Prophet Muhammad, the chapter of the red heifer, or the first chapter after Fatiha in the Quran, the longest chapter in the Quran, is devoted predominantly to the Israelite epic of the Exodus and the various legal processes and adventures and pains and trials that befell the Jews. In the Quran, in the chapter of the cow, there is no mention. It is remarkable if you read carefully. There is no mention when God talks of the covenant with the Israelites, and God honored the Israelites and chose them for a special covenant. There is no mention that they are responsible for their neighbor. The root of neighbor only occurs in the Quran for the very first time in the chapter of women, the fourth chapter in the Quran. In the constitution of Sharia, when it recounting for the Ummah or the Muslims the story of the Israelites, it does not mention the neighbor. The Prophet's elaboration on this is incredibly illuminating. And I discussed this with people on the World Rabbinical Council, and they were ecstatic because it represents a different self-definition issue that is problematic in rabbinical literature. The Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, said in hadith that we narrate with isnad to him, that the Jews, when infected by an influx of foreigners, were deviated as a result of this foreign influence and led astray to be attracted to worship the calf, the golden calf, which is cited in the Quran. And so it actually offers, here's the more humane exegesis, is there is a profound ideological reason why the Jews were closed to the outsider as a ideological protection. And this does not exist in the rabbinical narrative, but the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, offers it to the Jewish community so that their self-narrative is ennobled, so that there's no need for feeling guilty, there's no need for feeling that you've sinned against God collectively as a result of the geopolitics and the fear of the foreigner. All the Quranic exegesis is infected by geopolitical strands and makes the Jews to be monstrous in their transgression against God, when it is only from the Quranic narrative pristinely clear that a select few were the ones who transgressed and sought refuge in God, and those who did not were turned into pigs and monkeys, just as the Talmud says, by the way. Right? The famous thing about the Jews, and this is again, when the Muslim is asked, who are those who earned God's wrath in the Fatiha, sir? Muslim? Oh God, this is the Jews, and I can't say that on camera, you know? But again, it's that competence thing. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, when he was expounding the Fatiha, those who earned God's wrath are those Israelites who swayed from God's path by following their own whim and worship the calf. And if you think the Quran is harsh, wait until you read the biblical testimony against those who swayed from God's path. The story about the select, not all the Jews, a handful of Jews who transgressed against God were punished in the most severe way, and a handful of them were turned to, yes, it says in the Talmud, I personally read it there. In the Talmud it said they were transformed to apes and pigs, but it doesn't, unfortunately it's not elaborate enough. It leaves room for guesswork, and unfortunately, it leaves room for some Muslim clerics or Muslim jurists to come, thousands of years later, and because of geopolitics say, I'm very sorry, but this exists in the legal narrative, and they call the Jews the progeny of apes. By the way, we know from the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, those handful who were really transformed that way, as the Talmud tells us, millennia before the Quran, lived for only a few hours and died and didn't produce anybody. It didn't have conjugal relations with anyone. They didn't give birth to anybody. That was a temporary sign that God chose. It is horrifying, but it's over. That's it. It's not all the Jews. It's not all of Judaic tradition. You see how the Muslim needs that level of competence in her approach to her deen, because otherwise, anytime somebody asks you about Islam, you panic out of incompetence, out of ignorance, not because the Quran intends to condemn anybody categorically. Thank you both for that question.